Have you ever faced a moment where pure terror gripped you, but something inside pushed you to act? This isn't about superheroes or movie stars. It's about ordinary people like you and me who, in the face of unimaginable fear, found the strength to become their own heroes. Prepare to be inspired by their incredible stories of courage. Because today, we are going to dissect the very anatomy of fear, and the birth of the hero that lives, quietly, inside you. That feeling, the knot in your stomach that tightens until you can't breathe. The cold sweat on the back of your neck. The voice in your head that screams, run. Hide. Don't. We've all felt it. It's the invisible chain that holds us back. The fear of public speaking, the dread of failure, the simple, everyday terror of saying no to someone in authority. It's a biological alarm system, hardwired into our very DNA. Your heart pounds, your muscles tense, your vision tunnels. It's a primal force, designed for one purpose: survival. But what happens when that survival instinct becomes the very thing that stops us from truly living? What happens when the chains are tested, not by a hero, but by someone just like you? Let me introduce you to Alex. Alex was a barista. His world was the hiss of the steam wand, the rich aroma of coffee beans, the familiar rhythm of morning regulars. He was quiet, unassuming. The kind of person you might not even notice. He hated confrontation. The very idea of it made his palms sweat. But one Tuesday evening, as he was closing up, wiping down the counters, the bell on the door jingled. Two men walked in. And Alex's ordinary world shattered. He knew immediately that something was wrong. It was in their eyes. A cold, flat emptiness. One of them pulled a knife. The blade caught the fluorescent light, a tiny, terrifying flash of silver. Empty the register. Now. The words were a low growl. And in that moment, Alex felt it. The pure, unadulterated terror. It was a physical weight on his chest, freezing him solid. His mind went blank. This was it. This was the fear he always ran from. But then, his eyes flickered to the back room. Where his coworker, Sarah, a university student, was counting the till. She didn't know. She was humming a tune. Completely unaware of the danger just feet away. And something in Alex shifted. The fear didn't leave. It was still there, screaming at him to comply, to be invisible. But another voice, quieter, but firmer, spoke over it. A voice of protectiveness. A voice of duty. This wasn't about him anymore. It was about Sarah. The knife was pointed at him, but the threat was to her. His fear began to morph. It was no longer a paralyzing force. It became a fuel. A sharp, burning energy coursing through his veins. Time seemed to slow down. He saw the robber's finger tapping nervously on the counter. He saw the second man, by the door, looking jumpy, unstable. Alex made a decision. Not a heroic, grand decision. A desperate one. He looked the lead robber in the eye, and with a voice he didn't recognize as his own, a voice that was surprisingly calm, he said, "The manager has the key. He's in the back. Let me get him." It was a gamble. A terrifying, life-or-death lie. The robber hesitated. His eyes narrowed. This was the moment. The turning point. Would the chain of fear hold him? Or would it snap? It snapped. The robber gave a sharp nod. "Make it fast." Alex turned, his back exposed, every nerve ending screaming that the knife could plunge into him at any second. He walked, slowly, deliberately, towards the back room. Each step felt like a mile. He pushed the door open. Sarah looked up, smiling, about to speak. He put a finger to his lips, his eyes wide with a silent warning. He grabbed the heavy metal coffee grinder from the counter. It was solid, cold in his hand. He pointed to the phone, mouthing the word, "Police." He took a deep breath. The fear was still there, a wild animal clawing at his insides. But he was no longer its prisoner. He was its master. He turned back to the door, ready to face the abyss. But what he faced when he opened it was something entirely different. The door swung open. The two robbers were arguing, their attention divided. The one with the knife was turned away, yelling at his partner. This was his only chance. Alex didn't think. He acted. He threw the grinder. It wasn't an accurate throw. It clattered against the espresso machine, a loud, metallic crash that echoed through the small shop. But it did what he needed. It created a distraction. A split second of confusion. He screamed, "Sarah, now!" The sound was raw, guttural. The robber with the knife spun around, his face a mask of rage. He lunged. But Alex was already moving, not away, but forward. He tackled the man around the waist, driving him back into a table. Chairs screeched and toppled. The world became a blur of grunts and struggle. He felt a searing pain in his arm. The knife. But he held on. He held on until he heard the most beautiful sound in the world, the distant wail of a police siren. Sarah had called. He had given her the time. In that moment, lying on the floor, holding a bleeding wound, staring up at the ceiling he'd looked at 1,000 times, Alex was no longer just a barista. He had stared into the face of pure fear, and he had not blinked. But what about a different kind of fear? Not a sudden, violent attack, but a slow, creeping disaster. Meet Maya. A geology student who loved her quiet town nestled in a river valley. She'd studied the flood patterns for years. It was academic. Theoretical. Until the rains came. And they didn't stop. For a week, the sky was a relentless, oppressive gray. The river began to swell, turning from a gentle friend into a brown, churning monster. The official warnings were cautious. Prepare to evacuate. But Maya saw the data. She knew what was coming. And the fear she felt was a cold, heavy dread. It was the fear of helplessness. The fear of losing everything. Her home. Her photographs. Her sense of security. The day the levees broke, the fear became a reality. The water rushed in. It wasn't a wave, it was an invasion. A silent, rising tide that consumed streets, cars, gardens. Maya and her family were evacuated to the high school gym, safe, but shattered. They had lost everything. The fear had won. Or had it? Lying on a thin cot, surrounded by the sounds of crying children and weary adults, Maya felt the fear begin to curdle. It turned into something else. Anger. Resolve. She looked around at her neighbors, all paralyzed by the same shock and loss. Someone had to do something. The authorities were overwhelmed. And in that moment, the student became a leader. She stood up on a chair, her voice trembling at first, then growing stronger. My name is Maya. I'm a geology student. I know this valley. I know we can help. She started with a simple plan. Organize teams. Assess the damage when the water receded. Coordinate with the few relief trucks that were getting through. It started small. But courage, like fear, is contagious. One person joined her. Then 10. Then 50. This ordinary student, armed with nothing but a clipboard and a fierce determination, built an entire relief effort from the ground up. She faced the fear of responsibility, the fear of failure, the fear of letting everyone down. But each small act of courage, each decision made in the face of that fear, built a wall against the despair. She didn't stop the flood. But she helped her community find its footing in the wreckage. She showed them that even when you lose everything, you don't have to lose yourself. And then there is Ben. Ben was a software engineer. A man of logic, of code, of quiet precision. His world was predictable, controlled. He was driving home from a late night at the office, the road dark and slick with rain. His mind was on algorithms. Then, ahead, a sudden, horrific crunch of metal. A car had swerved, hit a pole, and in an instant, was engulfed in flames. Orange and yellow tongues of fire licked at the dark sky. Ben's car screeched to a halt. The fear that hit him was primal, ancient. Fire. The sight of it triggered a deep, instinctual panic. Every cell in his body told him to stay in the car, to drive away, to be safe. It was too dangerous. The car could explode. He was just one man. What could he do? He saw a figure trapped in the driver's seat, moving weakly. And in that split second, Ben's logic, his entire controlled world, evaporated. It was replaced by a single, undeniable imperative. Help him. He threw his car door open and ran towards the inferno. The heat was immense, a physical wall that pushed back against him. The air smelled of burning petrol and melting plastic. The fear was a constant scream in his head, but his body was moving on autopilot. He reached the car. The driver's side door was crumpled, jammed shut. The man inside was dazed, his face streaked with blood. Ben pulled at the door with all his strength. It didn't budge. The flames were creeping closer, the glass of the windows beginning to crack in the intense heat. This was it. The point of no return. He was going to die here, on this anonymous road. But then he saw it. A crack in the windshield. He grabbed a rock from the roadside, his hands shaking so badly he could barely grip it. He smashed the glass. He reached in, ignoring the searing heat on his arms, and unbuckled the man's seatbelt. He grabbed him under the arms and pulled. It was a superhuman effort, fueled by pure adrenaline and a refusal to let this stranger die. He dragged the man, stumbling, away from the car. They collapsed on the wet grass, just as the fire reached the petrol tank. The explosion lit up the night, a deafening roar that shook the ground. Ben lay there, gasping, his clothes smoldering, the rain cooling his burned skin. He had walked into the heart of his greatest fear, and had walked back out again, a savior. So, what did Alex, Maya, and Ben have in common? It wasn't the absence of fear. It was the presence of something stronger, even for a moment. For Alex, it was protectiveness. For Maya, it was community. For Ben, it was a primal, human urge to save a life. They didn't conquer fear. They used it. They allowed the adrenaline to sharpen their senses, to fuel their actions, instead of letting it paralyze them. The fight or flight response is a choice. Most of us are conditioned to choose flight. But these stories show us that the switch for fight is also within us, waiting for a cause greater than our own safety to be flipped. And the ripple effects? They are profound. Alex's story didn't just end with arrested robbers. Sarah, his co-worker, saw a side of human courage she'd only read about. It changed her, gave her a confidence she never had. The man Ben saved. He got to see his daughter get married. Because of one man's decision to run towards the fire, a family remained whole. And Maya's town? It was rebuilt, stronger, with a new community center born from the ashes of the flood. The courage of one person created a wave of resilience that touched hundreds. But this isn't just about their stories. It's about yours. How do you unlock that inner hero? It starts by acknowledging the fear. Don't try to suppress it. That's a battle you'll lose. Instead, recognize it. Name it. Say, I am afraid. And then, take the smallest possible step forward. Courage is a muscle. It atrophies without use. It's built in tiny, consistent repetitions. Are you afraid of public speaking? Don't aim for a keynote address. Start by voicing an opinion in a small meeting. Just one sentence. Are you afraid of failure? Redefine what failure means. See it as data, not judgment. Every misstep is a lesson that makes you stronger for the next challenge. The fearless man is not the one who feels no fear. The fearless man is the one who feels that fear, acknowledges its power, and then decides that his values, his duties, his loves, are more powerful still. He understands that on the other side of that paralyzing fear is a version of himself he was always meant to meet. A stronger, more capable, more alive version. So I'll leave you with this question: what is the small act of courage you will commit to today? What is the invisible chain you will test? It doesn't have to be running into a burning building. It can be making that difficult phone call. It can be setting a boundary with someone who takes you for granted. It can be finally starting that project you've been too scared to begin. Make the choice. Take that one, small step. Because that step is the beginning of a journey. The journey to meet the hero that has been inside you all along. The journey to become a truly fearless man.